Hello and welcome to the wrap on day 11 of the Betfred World Snooker Championship. And I'm delighted to be joined by top snooker journalist Hector Nunns. Hector, first of all, 6 former world champions in the quarterfinals.
It's a record, a Crucible record, not since 1977 has that ever happened before. It had us scrabbling back through the pages of the famous Crucible Almanac yesterday, just to make sure that it never happened. That's the compendium of stats that we use in the media here. It's an amazing book that I think everyone I think there's only about 30 of them issued every year. So yeah, that was fun. But as you say, what a massively powerful lineup, arguably the most powerful ever, and that without even Ronnie O'Sullivan and John Higgins anywhere near the quarterfinal last 8. So it's going to be very, very difficult to pick a winner from here, although we've got plenty of players in great form.
We certainly have. I was going to touch on Ronnie. Naturally, people are disappointed because he is box office. But even without Ronnie, who, let's be honest, Anthony McGill put a hell of a performance up against, we've got a hell of a lineup, haven't we, for the closing stages?
We really have. I think if you'd said to most people before the tournament who were the sort of maybe the 3 players of the season, most of them would have said Neil Robertson, Judd Trump and Mark Selby. And they're all still here. You know, they're all still sort of punching away in the quarterfinals and, you know, arguably sort of 3 of the main contenders for player of the season. Of course, you know, Ronnie has had a great season. He's got to 5 finals, but unusually for him, the strike rates let him down in those finals and he's lost all of them. So you could say certainly that the 3 form players are still in the mix. And I think, you know, if any of them were to win this world title, they'd be a very strong contender for Player of the Year awards.
And talking about Ronnie, I was with you on Friday night when he had the exit against Anthony McGill. But what was quite refreshing was Ronnie there and then saying he's playing for at least 5 years, maybe even 10 more years. You know, that was great for the snooker fans to hear that from Ronnie, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Listen, I mean, if you've covered this sport for, you know, as long as I have, you sort of, you know, you're going back even sort of 10, 15 years, regular sort of threats, not just when he'd lost, but when he'd won as well, of possibly walking away from the game. I mean, they were pretty commonplace. But it seems to be a much more philosophical animal these days, and a defeat, even a disappointing defeat like that 13-12 to Anthony McGill doesn't trigger a load of, you know, I might call it a day things. I think he's got a very clear idea in his head of how long he wants to play, and we can look forward to seeing him for a good while yet.
And whatever he might say to me or you in a build up to next year, he wants that 7th world title, doesn't he, to match Stephen Hendry?
Yeah, he definitely does. I mean, he played it down. We've been asking him about it all year. You know, from the moment he won the 6th one, you know, back in August, it was the obvious question. You know, what about number 7? You know, can you do it? And he's been really playing it down. And you know, if you're asked the same question that much, I suppose it must get a little bit tiresome. But he played it down in the build-up. But I think it just began to come out, and particularly when he didn't get it after he'd lost, how much it would have meant to him. And I think he'll be giving that a real go. So the next 2 or 3 years, I think you'll see him give it a real good crack.
Well, he was beaten by Anthony McGill in a thriller, and his match is nicely poised in the quarterfinals against Stuart Bingham at 4-all, Hector.
Yeah, it is. I think Anthony McGill will probably be the slightly happier to have come out at 4-all after their morning session. Obviously, they're playing again in the evening session. Stuart Bingham, definitely the heaviest scorer. He notched his 500th career century and very soon added another one. But for McGill to get out of that session, that's what it's about. This tournament play, best of 25 matches, 3 sessions. It's about getting out of a session where perhaps you've been battered a bit, 4-all, maybe 5-3 worst. And McGill's done that today. So if he comes out and plays better in the last 2 sessions, then he's got every chance still.
Whoever goes through, there's a story. Stuart Bingham, the 2005 champion, had to come through qualification. And of course, Anthony McGill, in that semi-final last year against Kyron Wilson that went to the final frame decider, I mean, he's done so well to bounce back from that, hasn't he, mentally?
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, that was, I think, the craziest frame. I've been watching snooker, probably covering it professionally about 20 years, watching it sort of 20 years before that as just a fan. That's definitely the craziest frame of snooker that I've ever seen. And I'd include the 85 final between Steve Davis and Dennis Taylor in that. You know, it went on about 62 minutes. There was, you know, sort of 40 odd points in fouls. I think, you know, it was decided on a fluke green off, you know, in favour of Kyron Wilson. And he must have been absolutely crushed by that. That fluke green cost him $100,000, which he's still clearly is never forgotten. He's mentioned it a couple of times this year as well. So to come back from all that and give it another really good go, have another really good run. He's obviously taken the positives, sort of tried to sort of shut out the demons. And it'd be very hard to pick a winner in that match at the moment, nicely poised as it is.
And just a final question, Nancy Miguel. This is a guy who plays every day with John Higgins and Steve Maguire. So he's battled hardened, isn't he?
I think one of the most revealing things he asked after beating Ronnie O'Sullivan was that he just didn't feel in awe out there. I mean, people can feel in awe of Ronnie O'Sullivan's talent and ability when they're sitting in a chair and he's doing his stuff. But Anthony McGill was used to, being in his Glasgow practice unit, watching John Higgins, who's, almost identical standard and ability, doing the same thing. So it's not new to him. He sees it every day, day in, day out in practice. And I think that really helped him in that game, because it wasn't the sense of, I don't belong in the same room as this bloke. He sees it all the time, playing up against John Higgins and Stephen Maguire, who apparently, is every bit as good in practice and almost harder to beat.
Let's talk about the other game that started this morning. Neil Robertson's 5-3 up against Kyron Wilson. You fancied Neil Robertson at the beginning of this tournament. He seems to be settling in to the Crucible very well this year.
Yeah, I think this quarter-final is a massive hurdle for him, because it's one he just hasn't managed to negotiate very well at all in recent years. And you just wonder if maybe there's almost a bit of a mental block there at this stage. And I hope he can get over that, because the guy is a serial tournament winner. He wins all the big tournaments every season. He's one world title for Neil Robertson feels very light. It's 11 years ago. He's I wouldn't, maybe feared is the wrong word, but there's huge respect for him among the rest of the game. Everybody knows they're in for a scrap against him, from Ronnie O'Sullivan through to Mark Selby, John Higgins, Judd Trump. They all know they're in for a battle against Neil Robertson. He was my tip at the beginning. I haven't actually seen anything to change my mind. He's obviously, got a very, very tough game against Kyron Wilson. And even were he to come through that, there's the possibility of maybe a Judd Trump looming in the semi-final. So it's no easy path, but 5-3 up, he'd be happy with that. I think also Kyron Wilson, ironically, will also be happy with that. Could easily have gone 6-2. So I think both of them will have come out of that with Robertson leading 5-3, reasonably content with that first session.
And as we record this right now, Judd Trump is not having it all his own way, is he, in that quarterfinal against Sean Murphy?
No, he's certainly not. I mean, as we speak, Sean Murphy's sort of 3-2 ahead. He's been looking really good. Look, he's looked great in his first two matches. You can just tell certain players have got the little, idiosyncrasies and perhaps the way they move, way they behave. Sean Murphy's got a bit of a swag around the table when he's really feeling it, and he's feeling really good. And it's been there this tournament. He's been making huge breaks. His safety has been certainly good enough. And he's as Judd Trump said yesterday to us, when he's like that, he's very dangerous. He's a very dangerous animal. And I see that match going possibly a lot closer than people might have said maybe at the beginning of the tournament that it would, because Sean Murphy has shown form that he really hasn't shown for certainly all season.
And Mark Williams is playing Mark Selby on the other table. And Mark Williams has given you such good copy over the years, and including this tournament as well. And we still see the pictures from 3 years ago when he did his naked press conference. He's very, very good value, Mark Williams, isn't he? He's
fantastic value, yes. I think there was this year's, after he beat John Higgins, we really tied him up in knots, sort of bamboozled him really in that last round. I think John Higgins made the comment that he felt like he'd been in the ring with Floyd Mayweather and had his head jabbed off. He's just a very, very clever player, Mark Williams. And as you say, then we had a nice chat with him about his boxing, his love of boxing. And of course, he was a very good amateur junior boxer. I think he was maybe 12-0. I think he might have won all of his 12 fights as a junior amateur. So he loves his boxing, and he loves these clever boxers like your Nassim Hameds and your Chris Eubanks, rather than and that's very much how he plays snooker. So it was a really good chat. And as you say, some nice pictures, some nice headlines about him having a puncher's chance at the Crucible, and some of those pictures from 2018 where he did as he promised his press conference naked, which was a strange night for all of us.
And very quickly, one word: who wins it?
I plumped for Neil Robertson. There were three people in great form: Neil Robertson, Judd Trump, Mark Selby. I plumped for Neil Robertson at the beginning. I'm gonna stick with that, I think.
Hector Nunns, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the Betfred World Snooker Championship.
Betfred, proud sponsor of the World Snooker Championship.